is I really don't care what you say about me, as long as it's not the truth.
They've got a guy named Dale Hansen down in Dallas.
And then all of a sudden, Dale Hansen popped up on the screen.
He's making a difference that quite frankly, not many people could.
That's where the latest conspiracy theory started.
Hola, shalom, and hey there, neighbor. Welcome to the latest episode of Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen, brought to you by Northwest Insurance. I'm your host, Mark Villasana, and joining me as always is my BFF, Marketing Manager for Northwest Insurance, Miss Lila Levy. Shalom, Lila.
Shalom. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm good. It is opening day of baseball today.
Oh, you just can't go out there.
I'm very excited. I'm very excited.
Good to see you. Also joining me today is WFAA TV legend, the self-proclaimed voice of reason, and the man we're calling the blueprint around here this month, Mr. Dale Hansen. Hey there, Dale. What's going on?
Well, I love this part of the broadcast every time. Is we start off talking about all the things that I'm unhappy about and all the things that I want to complain about over the last month. But when you look at the world now, and everything's just going so incredibly well.
Yeah.
Everything is perfect today. We don't really have much to complain about.
We ought to call this segment What Pissed Dale Off.
Next month, though, just to give a real early tease, next month we're going to be diving into it bigly. We'll dive into it bigly about some of the issues going on right now. But as Lila pointed out, as we record this, it is opening day for Major League Baseball. Right. It's a special day, and we have a special guest.
Awesome. We'd have a great guest today. So tell me, what has been bothering you over the past month? Anything you want to get into? Anything you want to discuss? Anything?
No, I really don't.
No, okay.
My brain is seriously baked. Yeah. I've been texting back and forth with a couple of my friends who aren't even aware of some of the things that are going on in our world today because they watch Fox. Right. Which is an embarrassment to the word journalism, and it just sets us up, I think, for just such an abyss. Yeah, we're just coming off the cliff into the abyss, and you look at the lines at the airports. Right. You look at this cavalier attitude that we somehow seem to have adopted when it comes to killing people. Yeah. That high schools are being blown up in Iran, and we're like, man, not necessarily us. Yeah. Blowing people out of the water because we think they're selling coke. Yeah. Off their motorboats. But this incredible cavalier attitude that we seem to have adopted in this country just drives me nuts. And as I said, we'll get into it bigly next month because I've written a piece that I think will offend a lot of people.
I hope so. The emails always come in when you do that. I really see no light at the end of the tunnel for this thing, but I know you're going to get into it a lot next month. I can't wait to hear that one. But for this month, tell me, what do you have?
Yeah, this was good. This is also one of my favorite topics. Is, as Lila mentioned, it's opening day for Major League Baseball as we record this. So I wrote a little piece about what baseball today means to me, and it goes something like this. I doubt there's anyone who remembers my 41 years on Dallas TV and radio who will believe this. But baseball was my favorite sport as a boy until it wasn't. Learning the game in the backyard with my dad, listening to Dizzy Dean and Pee Wee Reese on Saturday's Game of the Week, and the trips to Kansas City when the Yankees were in town are the days I will always remember as long as I can remember anything. It is a strange part of my life now. I'm watching TV shows and movies again that I know I've seen, but I don't remember the plot of any of them. And yet I can still name the batting order for the 1960 Pittsburgh Pirates when I was only 12, and the pitching rotation too. But somewhere along the way, I lost my love for the game that used to be America's game. The boys of summer play into November now. The biggest stars should make the biggest checks, but players that no one really pays to see are paid more in a week than most people make in a year. And they don't get 4 months off either. Baseball owners will tell you they still have the cheapest tickets of any of the major sports, and they do. But take your 2 kids to a game and tell me how cheap it is now. God, I hate it. I really do. When I sound like the old man on the porch telling the kids to get off my grass, but I am old enough to remember when baseball wasn't just a great game, it was the greatest game, played by men who were our heroes. We learned later in life that some of them shouldn't have been, but I limped when I ran because Mickey Mantle limped and I thought it looked cool. My old man was so mad when I told him that, he almost gave me a lip. But Mantle reminds me of the argument that I still don't think has been decided. I think Mantle, Willie Mays, Henry Aaron, Joe DiMaggio, Bob Gibson, and Sandy Koufax are just some of the players who played 70 years ago and could still play today. There's not another sport, not another game, where the best players in 56 would be among the best players in 26, except baseball. A friend of mine says that proves the greatness of baseball. It is the perfect game. It always has been. You can't make perfect better. But it's not perfect anymore. Major League Baseball has become a game of home runs and strikeouts and the occasional walk. And that's why I and so many others who loved the game as a boy decided to walk away. I wish I could go back. I wish the game would take me back. Chasing the boys of summer for an autograph in Kansas City when I was a boy are the days I'll always remember until I can't remember anything at all. We used to go to Kansas City all the time with my dad, and I'm 77 years old, and I can still just remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah, baseball has definitely had a place here in this culture. That sounds like a whole bunch of back in my dayism, but I totally get that. But to me, baseball really has no one else to blame but baseball itself. I think they were so took too long to make changes in the game. Whereas you take a look at someone like the NFL, and they've made significant changes, small but significant changes that have kept up with where our culture is today. Right? We're a fast-paced society.
Yep.
Internet, instant entertainment. Not to mention all the streaming services. The leagues are competing to where they're going to get their entertainment from.
Basketball brought in the shot clock.
Right.
They brought in the three-point line.
Right.
Football keeps changing all the time. Some people would argue maybe it changes too much. But again, as I said, this is my buddy Judge Boyer, and everybody who knows me knows that I'm talking about him. He grew up in New York, loves baseball.
Yeah.
And as I use his line, basically, is that baseball didn't have, in most of their opinions, I think, and most of their thinking was, they didn't have to make a lot of changes because it was already the perfect game, which I'll grill our guest here about and see if he's with me on this.
Let's check in with Lila real quick, and then we'll introduce our special guest. Lila, what do you have to say with Dale to say?
Here are my thoughts. When I was young, so I'm in my late 50s. So in the early to mid 70s, I grew up loving baseball because what I did was I went on errands with my dad in his car, and he had on Ranger baseball on the radio. So that was where my love for baseball started. That's where my passion and me understanding baseball started. And every Saturday we would watch weekend baseball with Joe Garagiola every Saturday for years and years and years. To me, when you say baseball to me, that's really the first thing I think of. It really is. The second thing I think of is the New York Yankees, which I know I'm going to get stuff thrown at me for saying that because I placed them above the Rangers. Sorry, y'all, but not sorry. But I'm going to agree with y'all in the fact that baseball hasn't progressed the way it needs to for young kids like I was to get into it and get impassioned by it. Right. It doesn't go and appeal to that young kid. So how can it, and when will it, and how will it go about?
Well, I'll tell you what, let's bring in our special guest, Dale, and let's see what he has to say about it. He might know a little something about baseball. In fact, he knows a lot about Texas Ranger history because he's a big part of it. You might know him as an original Texas Ranger back from when the franchise moved from Washington back in 1972. He later served as the longest tenured GM in the history of the franchise, and after that went on to do color commentary for the Texas Ranger broadcast. Please help me in welcoming Mr. Ranger himself, Mr. Tom Grieve. Hola, Tom. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's nice to be with you.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm sure Dale has some questions he wants to ask you about this baseball thing.
Let's get this one out of the way, because you and I have talked about this a dozen times, and sometimes we've done it late at night when neither one of us were thinking as clearly as we are right now, I would imagine. But I still think that Mickey Mantle, Willie Mays, and I would even throw Bob Gibson in particular in there. I think you could take that same exact player and they would bat cleanup, or Willie Mays could bat first, second, third, fourth, any one of the spots that he wanted. They could both run down everything in center field. Bob Gibson, I think, would maybe not be quite the Bob Gibson that he was in 64, but I think he'd be close enough. How far off am I?
You know, it's one of those arguments that you can never prove who's right or wrong. My feeling on it is, and again, part of the conversations we've had in the past, if you took those guys and transported them from that exact time to this exact time, they couldn't compete. I don't think so.
You don't think they could compete, or they wouldn't be stars?
But definitely wouldn't be stars. But the game has evolved so much that the velocity back then that compared to the velocity now, I'm guessing, would be 88 to 90. Now it's 98 to 102. They didn't throw sliders back then. No one had ever conceived of what a splitter was. There was a changeup, and it was really good. My guess is some of the guys that might be able to do it would be someone like Whitey Ford, because there have been guys like Whitey Ford who've won big. Jamie Moyer threw 84 miles an hour and got by with location and a great changeup. So maybe someone like Whitey Ford could do it, but a power pitcher like Bob Turley wouldn't have a chance, because his 92 mile an hour fastball and big curveball, he couldn't pitch in AAA ball.
It is the same argument I've used. Like when everybody says to me when I make this argument in my favorite late night establishment, everybody argues, well, Wilt Chamberlain would still dominate. I said, well, I don't know that he would, because when he played, Bill Russell was his biggest challenge, and Bill Russell was like 6'9". Now, if Wilt Chamberlain played today, every single night, he would be up against a guy that's 7'2" and weighs like 300 pounds.
So what?
And now, and I'm saying the same thing. Willie Mays only hit like 195 against Bob Gibson. He did hit 260 against Sandy Koufax, but then he hit like 400 against everybody else. There are pitchers who would dominate Willie Mays today, but wouldn't he still catch enough mistakes to maybe not be Willie Mays, but he'd be better than Kyle Tucker?
No chance.
You're killing me.
Chance. Now, if you took Willie Mays and transported him in time to where he showed up now as a toddler and
grew up
going through travel baseball.
Right.
These kids, when they're 12 years old, are facing guys throwing 80 miles an hour on a little league field. So they grow up seeing velocity. That's why when you see Jacob deGrom pitching to the Dodgers last year, I can't remember the kid's name, their second baseman, he's got him 0-2, and you're thinking, oh, he's going to waste one. And he does. He throws him a 99 mile an hour fastball, a little bit outside and a little bit high. And this guy hooked it over our bullpen in right field for a home run. And you're just thinking, it's a different game now. And, you know, I agree with a lot of things you're saying about the game back then. I think we run the risk of everything was better as we remember it.
I plead guilty.
But still, the game has changed, and in a lot of ways, I agree with you guys, not for the better. But the one thing that has changed that still keeps me watching is how great these guys are. The talent that these guys have is so incredible that it's still fun to watch. If you took a highlight reel, if you could make a highlight reel from a week's worth of games in 1945, they wouldn't even make the final cut for a daily highlight reel that you see in the game today. The catch that Gary Matthews made in center field in our ballpark, greatest play I've ever seen personally in baseball. Willie Mays never made that play.
All right, before I let them get back in here, let me try to just move along with one final point on this. As you and so many other people try to convince me that the game itself is better because the players are bigger, the players are strong. Wait, you're shaking your head.
No, I think that's true, but I'm not saying it's better. I don't think it is better.
But the players themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if the players are better because they're bigger, they're stronger, and they're faster, why is a ground ball to short? They're still out by a half a step. The home runs still go about 430 feet. We don't have anybody hitting, 600-foot home runs. A ball off the wall in left center field. They're sliding into second base. So, some of them come in and say, but you know what I'm getting at. It's amazing to me, and this goes back to my buddy the judge's argument, is that if Willie Mays hit a ground ball to short, he was out by half a step. And the fastest guy in Major League Baseball today hits a ground ball to short, he's going to be out by half a step. How's that possible?
Because it's not the same ground ball. If you had Willie Mays hit a ground ball to shortstop and he's out by half a step, if someone today, and I'm not saying I don't even know how fast Willie Mays was. Maybe he'd be fast as anyone today, but probably not. So if you took the guy today and he hit the exact same ball to the exact same guy, he's safe by a step. The way he's out by half a step is he's hit a ball a little bit harder and the shortstop got rid of it a little bit quicker. It's still half a step because the guy's so fast. Now, if you're playing today and you hit a ground ball in the hole, like really in the hole, to where the shortstop goes out into left field behind third base and throws to first base, you're out by a half a step.
I wish you were only half a step, but yeah.
That's your ground ball to shortstop. It just depends who hits it and how hard they hit it.
And I think the other part of that is the shortstop's also quicker. The shortstop's got the stronger arms, so they make the faster play.
Right.
But it is,
it's fascinating.
And again, I covered this game for almost 50 years, but at the same time, I'm still mesmerized, as you say, by the plays these guys make. And this is true in a lot of sports, but the plays these guys make are just not as easy as they make it appear.
Someone said it earlier. I'm not sure. Talking about the glove? Was that you were talking about the glove?
No, I said to you, the glove. Yeah, the glove.
The gloves are huge. Yeah. I've got a photo. In my briefcase, I've got maybe 5 pages of incredibly interesting things to me. And one is Phil Rizzuto going in the hole to make a play where they've got a close-up of his glove. The fingers don't even have laces between them. And you'd have to be extremely talented to catch a ball one-handed with this glove.
I've got my high school catcher's mitt in my Eagle room, as my wife likes to refer to it. My high school catcher's mitt, and it almost looks like somebody's batting glove. I mean, it's not like that.
So you think about why did guys hit 400 back then? Well, if the shortstop has a glove that he can't go in the hole or jump up for a line drive to make a play, it's a base hit. Nowadays, the gloves are huge. And so you make more plays because you can catch more balls. If you put Willie Mays' glove on Gary Matthews' hand, he can't make that play because his glove's not the same size. So to me, those guys were incredible defensive players back then because of the gloves they used in the plays they made. I don't know how they did it. If you gave those gloves to the players today, they couldn't make plays.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt everything's relative and proportional, as the game grows, the players grow and whatnot. And it's funny how we romanticize these players, But let's take a quick break, and when we come back, let's talk about what we can do to make the game of baseball itself bring it back to the forefront of American culture, okay? You've been listening to and watching Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen, and we'll be right back.
Right now, times are hard for everybody, and I'm talking gas, groceries, bills, and so much more. At Northwest Insurance Agency, we understand that, and that is the reason why we want to help. Whether it's protection for your car or house, maybe even your business, we are here to get you the best price possible that won't hurt your wallet like everything else. We have a bilingual staff that is waiting to get you quoted and set up, so give us a call at 2-143-525656 or visit us at nwagencies.com.
Northwest Insurance.
Okay, we are back on Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen. And guys, when we left, we were talking about all these great players and how we miss. Dale was talking about how much he misses Mickey Mantle, Willie Mays, and all those great players. But my question is, what can we do? First of all, what do we not like about today's current state of baseball? And what can be done to make it a little bit more exciting, a little bit more entertaining for the public?
You, Lila, I know what I hate about it, but go ahead.
It just doesn't seem real personal to the fan anymore. I remember, like I said, when I was growing up and I was with my dad and my brother and we were watching baseball or listening to it, you knew the players' names and the players were out there. Maybe they were going to be at this store signing autographs, or you knew certain personal things about them. They just seemed very personal to you. You're watching the game and you're in your living room, and you feel so connected to them. And I have not felt connected to a Texas Ranger or a New York Yankee in probably a dozen years or so. There's a lack of connection.
Right, I get that.
I think free agency is doing that across the board. When I grew up back in the 60s, and as I said in this commentary, I could still give you the batting order for the Pittsburgh Pirates because I knew they were going to be there year after year after year. Now players, I guess about the mid-'70s, I think is when it started with free agency.
Right.
And now we're basically seeing it across the board. That I do think that's changed the game and changed the connection with the fans, that the player that I really get hooked on, now he's playing for the team that I hate. And I think that hurts the fan connection, but it's fair to the player, I guess.
Yeah. Now, Tom, you've seen a lot of baseball. What do you still revel about the game, and what do you want to change about it, and what do you think we can do to make it a little more exciting?
I like the changes they've made, specifically speeding up the game.
Pitch
you
clock.
guys have already referred to that.
Yeah.
They had to do that because you were talking about young kids not being as enamored with baseball now as they used to be. And that's one of the reasons, because a lot of us are not going to sit there for 3 hours and 20 minutes and just watch baseball over and over. But now that you've condensed it a little bit, it's a little bit easier to watch. And I think baseball's making a lot of headway with young kids. That's why next year is going to be disastrous.
You think so?
If they go on strike, or if they're locked out and it lasts a long time, so these kids will move on to something else and never come back.
I think it's a huge problem. But do you think the pitch clock is physically hurting pitchers?
No, I don't think so. But I don't know. I've seen the case made that it does a little bit. I saw where Tampa Bay their pitchers were always slow. They were known for it. Their games were longer.
Yeah.
And their studies showed that the longer you took between pitches, the more rested you were to make a better pitch the next time. It was done on purpose. So I'll make up a number. Instead of waiting 18 seconds to pitch, they were waiting 21 or 22 seconds. Doesn't sound like much, but if you do it for 85 pitches in the game, taking a little bit extra between each pitch, their feeling was you'd have more stamina. So in that regard, it has sped the game up. My first reaction, without knowing, without being a doctor, without being a pitching coach, is anyone that says that's just making an excuse.
Yeah.
I like the fact that, number one, I think without question, the pace of the game has got to keep getting faster. And I like it that way, even as the old guy. I mean, baseball games used to be 2 hours and change, tops. The other thing that I can't stand, and I was talking to Tom about this over the years, and again, just earlier today, the fact that pitchers now is like a quality start is like 6 innings and 2 runs or 3 runs. And I'm like, no, Bob Gibson would be embarrassed if you came out in the 6th inning and said you're coming out.
Right.
My old man used to think that Whitey Ford was the most overrated pitcher of all time. And as I said when I did this interview with Mickey Mantle told me, if I had one game to play, one game to win, I want Whitey Ford to start that game. So I called my dad back in Iowa, and I said, hey, Dad, you say Whitey Ford's overrated. Here's what Mickey Mantle just told me. And without missing a beat, my dad said to me, yeah, well, if Whitey Ford started it, he sure as hell needs somebody to finish it for him. Whitey Ford would pitch 7 innings and maybe 7 1/3, and here comes Luis Arroyo. Gibson, Harvey Haddix, Warren Spahn, Juan Marichal, even Koufax, they're going 9 innings. They finished what they started. I hate that, and I love the fact now you got to pitch to at least 3 guys. Remember a couple of years back, it was pitch to that guy, we change again, pitch to that guy, change again. It might be good for that individual game, but I think it drives the fans nuts. Get out there, pitch, let's play. And they're starting. I don't know how far they're going to go with it, but they're starting.
Well, I think it's just one of the many changes of the game, right? We're seeing the advent of all these middle relievers and relievers that weren't around there. The mentality's probably changed. We talked about some of the rule changes, the pitch clock, the larger bases. Has that translated into more offense? Because I think today's audiences want to see offense. They want to cheer, right? They're used to instant access to happiness almost. So has all these rule changes made the game any more, exciting?
I think it's made it more exciting just by what we've talked about before. When you can condense 3 hours and 15 minutes into 2 hours and 35 or 40 minutes, at least the excitement that there is in that game happens more often. You don't have to sit there and wait for it as long. So, I don't think there's any doubt about that. But, every time I used to have Fergie Jenkins on or Gaylord Perry for a mid-inning interview, it would always get to, you guys threw 325 innings. But in defense of today's player, those guys faced the pitcher 11% of the time. They faced the shortstop and the second baseman who couldn't hit a home run. They couldn't hit a home run. And so you've got probably 30 to 35% of the game where Fergie Jenkins and whoever they were could throw 3/4 speed and not have to worry about getting hurt. Might give up a hit, but big deal. Nowadays, every guy in the lineup can hit the ball out of the ballpark, some more than others. And so what happens is these guys, and they're growing up doing it in travel ball and everywhere else, every pitch they throw is maximum effort. They can't afford to throw a mediocre fastball because it gets hit out of the ballpark. So when you have to go max effort, boom, 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 for 80 or 90 pitches, you could make a case that those 80 or 90 pitches are the same as someone else's 135 pitches who got to rest for 30% of the time. Now, if Fergie's listening or Nolan Ryan's listening right now, they want to jump right through the radio and strangle me.
Yeah.
But the fact is,
It's true.
it's tougher to pitch now than it was back then.
But when you look at the guys who were starting and finishing, and the game moved along, and it goes back to what you were saying, Lila, I think there's a connection there that I knew when Whitey Ford, granted, he only made it into 7, but I knew I was going to see some stuff. Better yet, I one of my times was lying in bed listening to the great Harry Carey when Bob Gibson and Sandy Koufax squared off, and it was 1-0. The Cardinals beat Koufax 1-0. So when people talk about offense, but I don't think there's a whole lot more exciting than a really well-pitched, well-played 1-0 game.
Sure.
Yeah. The other thing I want to get into, and eventually I will let you get back in, I promise. But I used to argue this with John Daniels, who followed you eventually as the Rangers general manager. Isn't there just too much of an emphasis on the home run? I mean, so you hit 40 home runs a year. That's what, one and a half a week? I mean, it's 1.5 a week. But Bobby Valentine told me one time the difference between a 250 hitter and a 300 hitter is one bloop to right field a week. And I think that's right. I mean, mathematically, I'm pretty sure that's right. Bobby said to me, because I was always going nuts about you need more 300 hitters. And Valentine said, do the math. It's just one bloop to right field a week. And all of a sudden, you're a 300 hitter. I said to John Daniels one time, I swear to you this is true, who would you rather have, Joey Gallo hitting 400 or 40 home runs and striking out 185 times, or Pete Rose, who's 4,000 base hits? And without even blinking, he goes, I want Gallo. And I about swerved into the ditch. And he goes, I don't really need 4,000 singles if I can get 40 home runs a season. And I'm like, that's just crazy, because it's what? Explain that to me. I want to get into your '89 team here, but if you were a general manager today, would you look at the home run hitter compared to a guy that could hit 320?
My first reaction is the same reaction you had, because I remember baseball in that way. But what's happened over the years is, believe me, John Daniels, when he says that, he's not just tossing it out like we're tossing out things. He's got statistics behind it. He's
analytics.
He's got analytics behind it. And these analytics show that how the home run plays in this. That's one of the reasons that we probably don't like the game as much today. We like to see plays made on the field, but when there's more strikeouts, there's fewer plays made on the field. And it doesn't matter. Players don't have any reason to worry about striking out nowadays.
You said to me one time, there was a day when we used to be embarrassed when
You're
we struck out.
embarrassed to strike out. It doesn't matter now.
Nothing.
That's why you see, and I'm not going to mention names, but if you watch Ranger games, you'll see a couple of guys who go up there, they take the same swing at an 0-2 pitch as they do on a 3-1 pitch. In other words, they swing from their ass on an 0-2 pitch with a man on third base and less than 2 outs because they know the analytics say, if I hit a home run, I get this many points.
But here's the argument that I have with John Daniels about it. And I'm sure he's got the analytics and the numbers, but I said to him, and he just kind of laughed at it. I mean, not disrespectfully, just kind of ignored it because he knew he had the numbers, I guess. But I said, if Joey Gallo hits 40 home runs, how many of them changed the game? I mean, if he walked up the home plate with a toothbrush as compared to hitting 40 home runs, I'm saying, and I've never looked it up, but I'm saying 25 of the 40 home runs that he would hit, and I'm saying this for everybody, 25 of the 40 home runs they hit, they were either up 6-0 or they were down 6-0.
Right. Yeah, that's a good
so
point.
if he'd have walked up there with a toothbrush, the one-loss record would be the same. And I'm old enough to remember that the one-loss record used to be everything. Now, well, if he hits 40 home runs, I want him more than I want Pete Rose slapping singles into left field. I'm going, you're the stupidest guy ever, as he takes the team to the World Series and everything.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with the analytics because we don't understand the analytics. And back then, the stars that hit 40 home runs also got a lot of singles and a lot of doubles.
Right.
And when you look at their statistics, and I wish I had some of them in front of me, I'm fascinated by him. For like Joe DiMaggio, I think Joe DiMaggio, and probably a lot of guys back then, hit as many home runs as they had strikeouts. You know, hit 37 home runs and struck out 35 times. So there was more emphasis on putting the ball in play. Now, it was easier to put the ball in play when the guys didn't have the stuff they had today. When I watch the pitchers today, I don't know how these guys hit them. They're throwing 100 miles an hour. The ball moves both ways. I was listening to Jack Leiter talk the other day. He wanted the 92-mile-an-hour slider that cut in 2 inches and the 89 to 91-mile-an-hour sinker that went away 2 inches. We didn't have to contest. If I could be transported into time and have to face the Ranger pitching staff, I couldn't hit 100.
Yeah.
I really don't think I could. I'd look like a pitcher trying to hit. So that's how great these hitters are to be able to hit these guys like they do.
Let's take a quick break right there. And I do want to, when we come back, I do want to talk about analytics and how maybe analytics has damaged the game where it's no longer creating a superstar because there's so many niche players due to analytics. You've been listening and watching the Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen, and we will be right back.
If you're a Texas contractor and your insurance guy doesn't speak your language, fire him. We specialize in Spanish-speaking tradesmen. Call today and we'll review your current policy for free. No pressure, just straight answers. You've seen the guy that's your bro. That's us. And just like I protected my grandfather from the sun, we protect you from life's challenges. I'm Mark Villasana, owner and agency principal with Northwest Insurance.
I actually heard about NW agencies through a friend of mine who's been using them for years. Honestly, I've been really impressed. They made the whole process so much simpler than I expected. I was always used to dealing with a lot of back and forth, but with NW it was straightforward, and I always felt like they had my best interests at heart.
We're a full-service independent agency. That means we don't work for a single carrier, we work for you. We've got access to over 100 carriers, so whether you're insuring your home, your truck, or your electrical business, we'll find the coverage that fits your needs and your budget.
It's been a game changer, really. I used to worry a lot about getting the right coverage, especially with my business and home, but now I feel much more confident. They helped me understand my options and made sure I had the right policy for both my business and personal needs.
We specialize in helping hardworking folks, contractors, tradesmen, laborers, the people who keep Texas running. Whether you're a framer in Floresville, a roofer in Seguin, or a plumber in San Antonio, we'll walk you through the process in plain English or Espanol.
We'll pour you a cup of coffee, talk you through your policy, and make sure you leave with more protection and more peace of mind than you came in with.
This is Northwest Insurance. We've got you covered.
Northwest Insurance.
Okay, we are back on Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen. Guys, when we left, we were talking about how analytics and how much it's changed the game. My question to you guys is, has analytics changed the game so much where there's no longer the complete player, the superstar? We talked about Mickey Mantle, who could hit the long ball, who could hit for average, Pete Rose, who could hit all day, base hits. It's no longer appreciated. where is analytics taking the game? Has it been a good for the game, or has it been a detriment to the excitement and to the interest of baseball?
Well, in my opinion, I think analytics has hurt the game. And I only say that because of the things we've already been talking about. My idea of a great game is to see a lot of balls in play, the hit and run, maybe a bunt even occasionally. All the plays, more double plays, more stolen bases. And the game today, the way the strikeout has been given much more importance than before, the home run has turned hitters into one-dimensional hitters, a lot of them. They're trying to hit a home run every pitch.
Right.
The pitchers are maximizing their velocity, trying to strike everybody out. And to me, that's what's taken a lot away from the game. I don't know that, and analytics shows it doesn't matter if you strike out. John Daniels will tell you that the home run is important, and all the organizations feel the same way. The question for me is, how are they going to get the game to improve to what it was when we grew up and the way we loved the game? Based on the way the game is played now, the part analytics plays in it, I don't see how it will ever go back to what it was then. So maybe the people like us die off. They don't remember how the game used to be played, and this is the game, and everybody's happy with it.
They should call you Mr. Optimism, not Mr. Ranger.
But you really don't think it can go back to people feeling the way they did about it?
No, because let's put it this way: the people running the teams now will run the team until their teams don't win, and then they get fired. And so the pressure is to do whatever they can to give their team the best chance to win. And they're all looking at the same analytics, and it tells you the home run is important, the strikeout doesn't matter. Don't ever bunt to give up an out. It doesn't prove to be right analytically, but you see it in all sports. You see it in a game, you go, they got to go for 2 right here. No, he's got his chart out. It says it's 17-13 with 4 minutes left in the third quarter. They're using analytics and everything. I don't know how they use it in other sports. It's here to stay. That's just the natural evolution of the game. So
the three-point shot in basketball is more valuable than the constant feeding it inside to Chamberlain and let him dunk it. I'm like,
yeah.
So great. So they go out there and they throw up 47 three-pointers and they make 16 of them, and the rest of the time it's up and down.
So if we're comparing,
I hate it.
You guys like all sports. Has the three-point shot and the dominance of the three-point shot changed the game for basketball fans the way the home run has changed the game for baseball fans? Is it the same thing?
I think it's eliminated a whole position. There's no longer that dominant center. You used to need that center. The number one picks year after year after year were the center. And now you got these, 7-foot guys that are playing outside the 3-point line. So
yeah.
No doubt the game has evolved. But my question is, has analytics gotten to the point where it's no longer creating these superstars? I'm a casual baseball fan now, and the only baseball player that comes to mind is Mike Trout, who's probably, on the downside of his career. I don't know who the big players are.
There's no threat of that.
Are there not any more superstars?
Aaron Judge is a superstar.
Okay.
Aaron Judge is a mega superstar.
Okay.
Struck out 4 times in the season opener, by the way.
Did he?
Yeah, he's 0 for 4. He's the only Yankee that didn't reach base in the season opener. Struck out 4 times, and without question, he is the major superstar in the game.
Yeah.
But just another quick example of, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He was swinging, although he does hit 300. I get
330 last year.
Yeah. The thing I mentioned this earlier, and it kind of ties into where I want to take you with this, Tom. You mentioned this upcoming CBA, the collective bargaining agreement. I don't understand the business model of baseball. I mentioned Kyle Tucker, and I don't mean to single him out, but I will. Kyle Tucker hit 266 last year with 22 home runs and 73 RBIs. I don't know of anybody in America that said, oh, my God, Kyle Tucker is coming to my town.
Yeah.
I need a ticket, like I used to do with my dad back in the day to go to Kansas City. Nobody has ever said, I have got to buy a ticket to see Kyle Tucker because he might hit one of his 22 home runs, he might drive in one of his 73 runs, and he might get a hit 1 out of 4 times at the plate. That's only worth $240 million by the Dodgers.
Bargain.
A 4-year contract for $240 million guaranteed dollars. You were involved in this aspect of it. you, and I want to make sure I get this out there before we end, I give you and Bobby Valentine a tremendous amount of credit for bringing the Rangers to a level of respectability. I thought the Rangers organization, as you are probably well aware, when I first came here, I thought it was a joke. You came along in '84, Valentine comes with it. That '88 winter, you bring in Nolan Ryan, you bring in Julio Franco, you had Rafi Palmeiro, one of my favorite players, you had Ruben Sierra, that '89 team, I think, underachieved, quite honestly. How does this business model make any sense, especially as we look forward to a new agreement with the Players Union, far and away the most powerful union in all of sports? How do they make this work?
Well, first of all, I can't argue with you on Kyle Tucker. I think Kyle Tucker's a fine player, but he's just an example of guys that make mega dollars after mediocre seasons. Now, I'm not calling him a mediocre player, but I don't know how the numbers you mentioned translate to that contract. I don't know. I go back to when I was a player, and the one thing the players always said to the owners, you're always crying, you can't make it. You can't make a dollar. You can't make a dollar. And the players would, maybe I'm naive when I say this, the players would say, not me, but the players, Marvin Miller would say to the owners, open up your books. If you can show us that you truly are losing money as a group, we'll sit down and we'll negotiate in a different way. They never did it. And my guess is they never have and they never will.
Never will.
And whenever one of these teams that seems to be mired near last place and seems to be drawing 18,000 fans a game, whenever they come up for sale, you can't line up fast enough to buy a team today. So all I can say is to the layman out there like us, there's so much money in the game today that the players are getting rich for hitting 270, and the owners are getting rich for putting a team out there that's 20 games under 500.
Mark, I think you can relate to this. I got to share this story. I forget the year, but George Bush, future president, future governor, was the what they call it, managing partner, I believe, of the Rangers.
Managing general partner.
Managing general partner. And it was the year that Major League Baseball teams had to pay a $10 million settlement because they were basically for collusion. Restricting the free agency market. You remember this little?
Yeah, that might have been,
89, 90, something like that, wasn't it? I think, somewhere. Yeah. Anyway.
Remind me to tell you a story when we're done. Because
okay. But so I've got George Bush live on the broadcast from the ballpark. And I'm looking at George Bush, and after this season had gone by, and we're into the next season, and he goes, well, he said, we broke even. I mean, we did good. I mean, things are starting to look up. And he said, now, of course, we had to pay that $10 million that I wasn't involved in, but Major League teams had to pay a $10 million settlement for the collusion. The next year, as I always like to say, on my sainted mother's grave, I said, Mr. Bush, how's the Rangers' financial situation looking? And he goes, well, we broke even. We broke even. And I said, well, where'd the $10 million go? And he just stops live on the air. And he goes, well, I said, well, last year you had to pay $10 million extra for collusion settlement. This year you didn't. But you broke even both years. I'm just curious where the $10 million went. And next thing you know, the interview's coming to an end. And it's exactly what you said. As crazy as I think these contracts are, and as overpaid as baseball players are, and as entitled as I think many baseball players are, it's hard for me to feel too sorry for any of the owners, because I have no doubt in my mind they're making money, and if they're not, sell them, because they'll have an option of who they sell that team to. And there wouldn't be that many people lining up just because I think some probably do, that, hey, I want to tell my buddies I own a baseball team. But they get into it because they know it's a good investment.
Right.
At the end of the day, they know it's a good investment. Right. I don't know how it's a good investment, but they do.
The way it's a good investment is, and I can't quote numbers with the Bush group, but if they can break even every year and they can own the team for 4 or 5 years, what they paid for it dramatically increases. They might pay $500,000 for the team and sell it for $4 million or $2 million. So year to year, there's not that much money being made. But when you resell that team, there's a lot of money to be made.
Old George Bush, how we miss you.
Yo,
I tell you what, let's take a quick.
who thought we'd say that?
I know. They never thought those words would come out of my mouth. Let's take a quick break right there. When we come back, it would be a missed opportunity if we didn't ask Mr. Ranger a little bit about the upcoming season, current state of the Texas Rangers. You've been listening and watching Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen, and we'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to the podcast, but I have a question for you. What's going to happen if an accident happens at your home? Maybe a fire or a flood or even a burglary. Well, with Northwest Insurance Agency, all of those thoughts can just stay thoughts. Because when you're covered under the sombrero, you're covered for any accident imaginable. So give us a call today or visit us at nwagencies.com and let us give you the peace of mind you deserve.
Northwest Insurance.
Okay, we are back on Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen. And guys, when we left, I wanted to ask Mr. Grieve here, tell me, what do you think the state of the Rangers is going to be this season? Do you foresee a middle-of-the-road season? Do they surprise some people? They made a lot of changes in the offseason, including a new manager.
I didn't go to spring training this year, but just from afar and reading it every day, I'm optimistic about the Rangers. There's a different vibe. And what's a vibe? Well, I don't know what a vibe is.
You're always optimistic, though. But you're always optimistic.
I just know that when you read all the quotes from every player as a group, from the staff as a group, and you see the two beat writers for the Rangers that were in spring training, and they're all picking who's going to win this year, the two beat writers picked the Rangers. Now, these guys aren't picking the Rangers because they want the players to pat them on the back when they get there on opening day. Thanks for picking the Rangers. They picked them because they think they're going to have a good team. Why would they pick them? They were there every day. They watched the workouts. They watched the optimism. They watched guys maybe change their swing, making better contact, pitchers throwing more, whatever it is. They saw it for 40 days, and they're picking the Rangers. So that's not my reason, but I think they've got a great starting pitching staff.
Exactly. Yeah.
The guys last year, they can't be as bad as they were this year.
There's no doubt the pitching staff's going to be there, but I mean, they lost a lot of offense. You know, do you think they brought in some guys that'll be able to pick that up?
Yeah, I don't know how much they lost. I'll take Brandon Nimmo from Marcus Semien at this stage of his career any day. I think Nimmo is a great addition at the top of the lineup. Where the offense is going to come from is for the guys that should have been supplying it last year and didn't. Jake Berger. All Jake Berger has to do is have the normal year he was having in Florida before he got here. Jacques Peterson. No one in their wildest dreams could have thought that guy was going to hit 180 and look as bad as he did. You could have taken fans out of the stands and they would have done the same thing he did. He's got to be better than that. Josh Young had hit 30 home runs, made an all-star team before that. You know, couldn't put the ball in play and was injured all year. So if they're normal guys, have normal years with that starting pitching, it's going to boil down to one question mark. That's the bullpen.
Tom, how hard is it physically and mentally on a family to go through a baseball season?
It depends. One thing that makes it a lot easier to go through the season is if you're having a good year. If you're having a terrible year,
that's got to be the worst. Yeah,
it's the worst because you say to yourself, "I've got to separate my family and going home after a game with a ballpark." But it's so hard to do. So that part's hard. It is difficult if you've been traded, if things change during the course of a season. But things are so different now. I was thinking the other day, the conversation that I had when I made the first major league team out of spring training. Ted Williams was the manager. He didn't call me into the office to tell me I made the team. There's one day left before we break camp, and several of the wives, 4 of the wives, have U-Hauls on the back of their cars, and that's what they were driving to Texas or Denver. So my wife is with 4 other girls that are driving back to Texas, and I haven't been told that I made the team. So she's either driving to Texas with 3 other girls and a U-Haul, or she's driving to Denver, where I would have been playing, by herself. And it's the day before this is going to happen, and she's handling it as well as she can. Finally, I said, I can't do this. And I went in to Ted Williams and said, it's probably not something that's normal. I got to know if I'm making the team or not. And this is the reason why. And I didn't care what he thought, because there comes a time where who cares about baseball? This is my wife, and she's got a little baby.
Right.
And he said, yeah, well, you're going to make the team. And I wasn't even happy. I just was glad I could tell my wife, oh, great, you're going to get to drive a U-Haul back to Texas.
That's awesome.
So things have changed now.
Things are a little bit different, yeah.
Well, speaking of how things have changed, I'm very fascinated still by what you and Dale, by your constant back and forth of, could Babe Ruth play now? That I'm really fascinated by that. But then we've also talked about Aaron Judge and current players. So there's the obvious of why the game has changed, right? Because now the players are starting when they're very young. There's also nutrition. There's also working out. There's technology. But let's say 40 years from now, what's the parallel you can draw for Aaron Judge 40 years from now?
Wow. You know what? I wish I could answer that question. I can't. I just know if it was 40 years from what we were talking about to Aaron Judge, 40 years down the road is too far. It's probably going to be more like 10 or 15 years, because things are happening so fast now. I can't even imagine what that player 40 years from now will have to be to make Aaron Judge look like a player that can't get transported in time and still be able to compete. I have no idea.
Okay, I get one last stupid question I have to get in, and this really is a dumb question, but it drives me nuts. Why do they give players a day off and then require them to come to the ballpark and sit on a hard bench and watch the game? If my station for 41 years in Dallas had said to me, Dale, you've been working a 6-day week, you've been working all day every week, we need you to take a break. So just put on a suit and tie tomorrow and come on in here and just sit at your desk. Sit at your desk until 10:30 at night when Joe Trahan is done doing the sports, because we want you to get
and
some.
Every time Joe makes a good point, get up and pat it on the back. Let's go, Joe.
I mean, it just cracks me up that, well, we're going to rest Corey Seager. We're going to rest, whoever it is. And there they are, sitting on a hard bench, watching a baseball game, having to drive through traffic in Arlington. Probably took batting practice. Don't they? Most of the time, even on a day off, they take batting practice. They go out, take a little infield. That's not a day off. That's just a slow. Give them a day off.
With all due respect, a day off from talking is a little bit different than a day off from playing a baseball game. So there's a little bit of apples and oranges right there.
A little bit, maybe.
But it is funny that you would say that. One of my pet peeves is that players need these days off. I remember someone telling me, Joey Gallo is a big guy. Every 10 days or so, we got to get him off his feet. And that just makes me want to puke. But for one thing, you're making this kind of money, and you've got a masseuse, a chiropractor, a physical conditioning guy, a dietitian. You travel by plane.
The planes are better.
Planes are better. You never pack your bags. And you need a day off?
By God, back in my day, Tom.
I hate saying that, but you know what? Those guys didn't get days off. Ruben Sierra, whether you like Ruben Sierra or not, and I don't know why you wouldn't like Ruben Sierra would play as long as he could step on the field, because in his mind, I'm 75% right now, but in 5 at-bats, I got a chance to get a base hit. I got a chance to get a walk and score a run. That adds to my statistics. It makes us a better team. I'm going out there.
He was an unbelievable physical specimen, but did he not let a fly ball drop and almost hit him on the foot when Nolan Ryan had a no-hitter going because of their jealousy or his
Yeah.
jealousy of Nolan Ryan?
Wow, inside scoop there.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And my reaction to that is
You could have caught that ball. You
Maybe.
could have caught that ball.
maybe, and I'm not saying Ruben was, the greatest right fielder, but it would just destroy my faith in humanity if he did that. I've grown to know Ruben pretty well, and it's one thing to have a grudge if he had a grudge, but to carry it out in that kind of a way is just something I could never think.
I hope you're right. I do. I hope you're right. But I'm still looking at that ball. I'm like, I still remember. I'm like, I think I could have caught that ball.
Yeah, we probably should check the analytics on that and see what that is. Well, Tom, I can't thank you enough for being here. I know before we get out, Lila's got to make some announcements. Go ahead, Lila. What do you got for us?
Now we get all kinds of email, some positive, some not positive,
Right.
for our podcast, and we would love more email. So please email Dale at daleh@nwagencies.com, daleh@nwagencies.com. We love your comments. We love your questions. We love your opinions. And also, if you need insurance, go to nwagencies.com.
I like that.
Check it out. You can contact Mark. We'll get you what you need.
I can't figure out which sleeve it is. I'm looking. Oh no, I'm looking backwards.
Dale's
I'm
trying
looking backwards. Here we
to
go.
show the guns there.
Yeah.
Dale, what do you have for us next month? I know you touched on it,
Yeah.
but it's going to be a big one. Tell us about it.
Next month is one that you've been pushing on me for a couple of months, and I finally got around to putting words to paper about it. But I do think there's an incredible lack of empathy in America today. I think we've lost our way, and I think from the top to the bottom and back again. And that's what we're going to talk about is there is just this element of our society that has become so coarse and so cruel that it cannot continue. It just can't. It doesn't matter, and I know it's going to come off this way. I have no doubt about this. It's going to come off as liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican. It's not meant to be that way because I do think there's a common denominator of basic humanity of how man treats man, and we've lost sight of that in America.
There's a prevalence of cruelty just for the sake of cruelty.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was pushing with that one because I know you have a lot to say, and I can't wait to hear it all. Again, Tom, thank you so much for being here. And I think if we learned one thing today is that we are all old. Thanks again.
It's all relative.
I'd love to
It's all relative.
I'd love to do this again sometime in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom.
You've been listening and watching Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen, and we will see you next month.